Good evening. Mr. Miller, would you like to introduce our new board? No, come on, get over here and
Well,
do it right.
Mr. Chair, I can introduce the board and call the roll, and then Rick can say a welcome, I think is what he planned
Oh,
to do.
okay.
So I'll call the roll real quick.
Okay,
and then-
call a roll then.
Okay, Commissioner Stinson. Here. Commissioner Montoya.
Here.
Commissioner Mayers.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Bacon.
Here.
And Chair Al Metcalf.
Here,
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
thank you. Yes.
I'll be very brief in my comments, but I would like to, first of all, thank the commission members for their sacrifice to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission for the city of Coolidge. This is a very important commission. You see the attendance public here, making requests. Some people want to comment on these issues, and so I've been involved with planning and zoning for a lot of years, since 1980. And of course, I'm the city manager now, but I wanted to make sure that each of you appreciate your service. Appreciate the service of those that have you've replaced. Some of those members filled out their terms, and we're grateful that you've expressed an interest in serving in this wonderful document. My office is open to any of you if you ever have any questions or concerns or issues, please let me know.
Thank you. Do we have anyone here for the environmental section of the general plan? We do not have, okay? We're going to change the order of business, and I'm going to do it so that you guys can go home. We have to stay for the environmental section. But let you guys go home so you can go have dinner.
Mr. Chair, you want to do the roll of the minutes so we can approve the minutes for, okay, good.
Okay, do I have a motion on the minutes? Phil?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll motion to approve the minutes from December 6, 2023.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes as printed and distributed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business. Cool PZ 231146. A planned area development major amendment application requested by Hilgart Wilson Engineering on behalf of Carden Hyatt Investments, Cameron McDonald, Carden Bowden Investments, LeSueur Investments, and Anderson Capital Partners by amending the existing 1,485 acre plus or minus Brighton Village pad to the 1,340 acre Brighton pad, located generally southwest of the intersection of Windsor Road and Highway 87, including changes to internal major and minor artillery roadways, individual land uses, and residential densities to specific parcels and to the overall residential density of the Brighton Village pad. APN numbers 2931-009A, 009B, 20931-016A, 6B, 6C, 20931-0170, 401-2115C, 015D, 015E, 016E, 016F, 401-21-068E, 068F, 068G, 401-21-069B, and 401-22-004G, 04, 004, 004K. I can't talk anymore.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we're excited to bring this project to you. This is one, if you recall, they're converting some of this to industrial also. And so this is a plan area development amendment application, and Phil will explain all the nuances to this so you understand, and you can have some questions. And then they'll make a presentation before you.
Okay.
Well, since I'd had the environmental element as the first one, it was like going to be my lead album to go number one, or my number one song, so you're mixing up my hits chart here. Anyway, I will summarize a couple things here as we get started talking about this planned area development, major amendment for Brighton Village. As you can see, its location here relative to the southern area, just south of town. I will focus a little bit on the general plan map here. Earlier this summer, the applicant submitted to us a major general plan amendment. That's to the general plan. This is to their PAD, their planned area development, a major amendment. At that particular time, what they had proposed was changing the land use where portions of this location here used to be some commercial and mixed use type elements, and this was all residential. And the approved general plan amendment this summer that was approved then in October by this body allowed the addition of about 200 plus acres, about 220 between this industrial and this commercial location here. And the city is really excited about this actually because its proximity to the I-87, the State Route 87. Think of it similar as what IPAS is where Nikolai is right now in P&G. This is a land use employment generator that is much closer to town. Obviously, we're very excited about IPAS and all the jobs that it's going to bring, but having something this much closer to town, hopefully we'll see businesses in here, people working here, and buying houses here. So that's just the first element that I want to talk about here. So since we've got some newer members here, I'll try to keep some things pretty basic, but also very clear as much as I can. We're looking at the general plan exhibit here. This is the land use document. This is the policy document of the city that dictates what goes into the zoning. So this is the first step of what we do. So here you can see the 6 inventoried land uses here. And so we've got the industrial and manufacturing. In this section right here, we have the business and commerce. And the vast majority of the project, excuse me, is urban neighborhood. And there is a portion here that is referred to as not a part, or as one might call an out parcel, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So the zoning here, you can see the same outline of the project, and as you'll see, if you can tell, that the entire area is PAD, or planned area development. The document that's referred to as planned area development is the zoning unto itself. So everything is contained within the planned area development and the documentation that you received. So let's do a little bit of just inventory, what we're looking at here. As you would expect, most of it to be agriculture. Up in this photo here, we've got the site looking generally from State Route 87. This location looking southwest from State Route 87. Over here, we're looking to the northeast from the intersection of Randolph Road and Sierra Drive. And over here, the project's a little bit further up here. It's not physically right in front of us, but a little bit beyond the trees, or as I call it, just a little bit south of the intersection of Martin Road and Kenworthy. So we get an idea of what we're looking at right now. All right, here's the heavy lifting, but don't let this intimidate you too much. I'm going to try to keep this in a couple of bullet points to make this as easy as possible. First thing to know that when this was first approved, it was 2005, and this also had a development agreement with it. When that was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council, they not only approved it, but they also entered into a development agreement, which is basically a contractual language. So that document has been in place and still continues to this day, as does this land use plan. So what we have from time to time, and this is not new, this happens a lot, every 5-10 years or so, there needs to be sort of a rebalancing of some of the land uses. Some things change a little bit, is what I call contemporaryism, housing, sometimes the industries change and things of that nature. So what we have here is actually about a year's worth of talking before we actually bring this before you, where each of the heads of the departments have taken a look at this proposal and actually given their okay to it. So in general, we're actually pretty excited about this. So here's the main bullet points I'm going to try to give you. Here you can see the land uses as before. There's the new proposal. What we have is a couple of areas of transfer, just moving some things around. In this area here was primarily the commercial, some of the industrial, some of the mixed use type of thing, basically taking those elements and transferring them down into here. And this makes a lot of sense, once again, to its better frontage proximity to the State Route 87. In this particular case, it also made sense. I'll briefly touch on this because it's a part of the componentry, but not the approval of this, but assured water certificates. The primary northern portion of the project here does have assured water certificates, including what used to be some of the commercial locations. And frankly, that doesn't make a lot of sense to have an assured water certificate for some of the designated locations that are the commercial and industrial. Maybe some of the mixed use, if there was some residential above some of the commercial and stuff, but that's not as large of a land use, nor is it as applicable today. So the idea was to take this, transfer it down here, and put residential where the assured water certificate could be. In other words, this will create more viable units that can actually be built upon. It's not a question of if they'll have water. It's already in place. They've got the certificates. So basically, we've got this entire northern area here that has that, and that's significant because we want to have these additional units, as Rick would say, units in the pipeline for when that demand comes and stuff in our community can grow. And fortunately, once again, we've got a very close homegrown employment generator right here.
And Phil, if you want to just, the reason the assured water supply is important is Arizona law will only let you subdivide to sell homes if you have an assured water supply. But you can still build apartments or rent-to-own product on other areas, and that's still allowed. So I just want to clarify that so you know what the importance is of the assured water supply. That's why they want to take advantage of anything they have. And in this case, they swapped out, as Phil was saying, where there was some commercial over assured water supply areas where we said, you don't need it there. And so why would you waste them? Because they're very valuable. And so that's kind of, a PAD allows you to move things, have more density in some areas and less in other to get a good product that works well. Okay, I just want to add that, Phil. Thank you.
That's cool. Like I said, I'm trying to keep this, pretty straightforward. It is accurately identifying what's going on here, but kind of in layperson terms in a sense. Another way to look at this too, whether it's this proposal or this, a planned area development is a master plan community. By that definition alone, it means using quite a bit of the majority of the different districts that we have, or similarly as they would propose in here. By having these multiple different types of uses here, they're creating that kind of diversity, which is the actual true definition of a planned area development or a master plan concept. So from some of the basic transfers and things that are going on, there's acreages involved, there's units. There's another slide I'll have here that actually is a chart that is in your report. That's basically just a sort of hard accounting to actually show what it is. But in the same way that I was talking about the generality of this, and I'll be able to come back and answer more questions to this, and the applicant representatives are here to answer other questions. But let's momentarily look at the inventory here. Much more complicated than it looks, or excuse me, less complicated than it looks. In this particular case, the first two phases are parcels that they would develop. They've actually been talking to us about a preliminary plat, so we know that they're very serious in taking steps forward to create those additional units to have in the pipeline, as we talked about. In this case, you can see what was the prior unit proposal for this first parcel was 757, and it's down to 560. Some of the additional units that are coming online are some other parcels, but a portion of a school site that was actually in that first phase that's no longer needed right now. So in that particular case, there is that flexibility to designate that as residential units within the development agreement. The school district has indicated that they do not need that. There'll always be other opportunities, different land uses nearby and stuff if the opportunity ever pops itself up again, but for the time, this is allowed by the development agreement. So those are the first two phases that we got in here. So, oops, sorry about that. Come on, come back, there we go. So the only real difference other than moving moving things around from one place to another is these additions of some single-family attached. And there's only 4 of these parcels, totaling about maybe 200 acres. And I know that seems like a lot, but remember, you're talking about a 1,340-acre master plan concept here, who originally is actually near almost 1,450 acres, or about 1,500 acres. So it represents less than 20% of the actual land use total, and what they are afforded by the development agreement is actually, at that time, 6,065 lots or units, spaces, single-family detached, attached, apartments, etc. So in this particular case, that's why the star is here. And the densities, once again, I'm trying to keep this on pretty easy, and basically call out that's the difference of the units and the acres from the school, the mixed use, the multifamily that I just identified, and some of the moving around of the new single-family attached land use. And I call particular attention to that because it's basically going to be like a townhouse concept, and I do have some examples here, and that's actually in your packet. So we do have our traditional multifamily, which is 18 units per acre, but this is actually part of the original proposal. In fact, everything that they have here in all the categories between the sizes of the lots and the different land uses are actually already in the existing document. So once again, this is kind of moving it around to actually make it a better product from what it is. So they're doing this in compliance with the development agreement. Although you do have the out parcel here, which is not identified as part of it, but that will still be bound by the development agreement and the original planned area development called Brighton Village. The remaining portion will be called Brighton, also be dictated by that development agreement. So between both of those projects and these other documents, they'll still both be bound by the requirements and the proposals the way that they were put in place and the way that they would be tonight. So once again, you can see the compliance here, and this is in line with the density that's allowed within the development agreement and the document itself. So once again, it's just a lot of accounting, but it needed to be shown, and just wanted to convey to you basically sort of the movement back and forth. And as we would expect with any master plan concept like this, you have open space areas, retention, pocket parks, tot lots, paths, larger recreational amenity areas, sports fields. In this case, we've also got some entry monumentation here, the master entry monumentation, and a nice corridor through the middle of the project that actually takes advantage and establishes a regional corridor travel, a hiking and biking path, if you will, or a pedestrian area. And of course, with some trees when they grow. So anyway, this is very highly amenitized. This is what you expect from a planned area development project like this, or an amendment. This is just to briefly just also, once again, show here's the streets, the level of service, busier, less busy, collectors, arterials, things of that nature, without going into it too much, show that they're inventorying that. Updated traffic reports will be provided as the project develops overall, and our public works and engineering people will go over those to make sure that those stay in line with the way that the project is designed. I shared the phase map because I wanted to show that in the entire first phase here, it's residential, single family, detached. This is the primary product that we want. In the second phase, they propose to do the employment base. This is a really great aspect, that here it is, the single family detached with the employment base, and then some of this is commercial here, but then also within the third phase, after the first and second phase, only then some of the multifamily elements coming in, or even the townhouse component. So you can tell by their proposal that they are committed to the primary product that we do like to see, single family detached, while still providing a diversity within the community for those who would select that type of housing. So, and that's a great design. And this also provides for an excellent transition, as we call it. Your primary residential right here, a nice transition, some other multifamily right here over to some other single family right here, but from a more intense use, maximum, medium, lower density use, and the same thing. So the aspect of the transition of the land use and the phasing are very complementary towards each other. Once again, a very skillfully designed project. Here are just some additional elements, kind of showing the different levels of walls that would extend from some of the entry monumentation that we talked about, different aspects of what some of the mailboxes may look like in different parts of the community. And then the more newer component here, once again, only 1/5 of the size of the overall total project and actually 1/6 of its existing acreage. Some examples that they provided of what they would imagine for basically a townhome or condo type project. 4 individual parcels, none in the first phase, nor the second phase. So this would be something for a consideration later on. So in other words, they're not chasing the higher density multifamily thing that some jurisdictions and individuals are a little bit fearful of. Those are parts of the community. They are housing options that we need. And it is a part of this project, but a very small project and further down the line than the primary element of the single-family detached in our desired employment location. So basically, that's about all I have. I will, back it up to the land use map right here, the before and after. Make it available for questions to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the applicant representatives are here to also answer questions as we may have them. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a few questions to ask Phil.
Yeah.
Regarding the 100-year certificate of availability of water, that far left side there, that was going to be in Section 1. That farmland hasn't been farmed forever. You know why? Because it doesn't have any water rights. Those water rights were sold back, I don't know when, 2004, 5, whenever, we had a water shortage, and that water rights were sold off that property. Hence, that farm has never been farmed in at least the last 10 years. So how could it have a 100-year certificate?
Are you talking down here or up here?
Up there, yeah.
Up here?
Right.
This actually is part of our own inventory. We have on our GIS level and some maps that actually call out so we know exactly which ones have the certificates in different statuses.
That's why I'm asking, how does it have certificates when it doesn't even have any water?
Now, the information we have is from the Arizona Department, the ADWR water, so that the mapping and everything we have, we can double check. And I know you're talking about.
I think we need to double check
Yeah,
on that,
absolutely.
because if it had water, there'd be a crop in it.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we just haven't had that.
I think that used to be part of the old McIntyre farm, right? Back.
Right,
Yeah,
McIntyre.
I remember that. I think I drove tractors on that back in the
Rick?
old days. Yeah.
Water rights for farming is completely different than water rights for residential subdivision.
That's right.
Arizona Department of Water Resources issued assured water supply certificates to a number of properties over the years. They got to a point where they over allocated the number of certificates, so they've been kind of putting a moratorium.
Right, true.
Yeah. But this property previously received a certificate of assured water supply from the Arizona Department of Water Resources, and it probably came about whenever they did the original PAD and got the entitlements on the property. That's why it's okay for residential development and subdivision.
Okay.
Water rights for farming, completely different story. I mean, probably did give up their rights to irrigation for farming purposes, but the water for subdivision was previously granted. You do go by a map from the Arizona Department of Water Resources. We work closely with the Arizona Water Company, so we know precisely where those properties are within the city limits that have those certificates, which ones don't.
Okay.
And we generally, just so you know, we generally refer people that look at properties to the department and also to Arizona Water, because they have an active, they'd be, involved supplying the water, so we make sure that it's not just our map. We send them to the state, and then they also go through Arizona Water, which,
Okay. I've got a few other questions. When, in my reading, I came across that there's like traditional zoning. I don't know if it's called traditional. I'm just going to tag that on there. And there's a PAD, which this project is, and it's different. There's a little bit more latitude, so they can step away from the traditional zoning, is that correct? So to speak?
Chair Metcalf, Commissioner Scott, yes, that's correct. So traditional zoning would be ag zoning, multifamily. They're asking for deviations from the zoning codes, but in consideration for that, the city is getting more amenities. It could be more open space. It could be more diverse stock of zoning classes. So we have more employment. We have more commercial, multifamily. We have a combination.
Okay.
Yeah, regular zoning, say, doesn't require the 15% open space. Some of these have more, and they have walking trails and things that you won't find in, like, the old part of Coolidge where it's just straight zoning.
Right.
So they can, so in exchange for providing those amenities, then that's part of the language in the general plan that was adopted by the voters 10 years ago. And we're going to go back to the voters again and renew that.
Right. So that's what I spent a little time reading. So if a pad doesn't follow the traditional zoning, what does it follow? And of course, you guys know it follows the general plan, correct?
It follows the general plan and the approved PAD. So when you approve this, then what they submit and what they're going to, that's what they follow. So that's what we'll review for densities, the, site plan that they bring and everything to us will be reviewed by engineering, by Public Works, which is engineering, by us in planning, fire department for road widths. So we'll still look at all that. It has to comply with the planned area developments adopted and the open space and the other things. Plus, this is all based also on an existing development agreement that the council approved when this first came to fruition. So that's pretty standard on this size of project with this much diverse product in it. So it's,
Okay. So with that being said, I was looking at this chart here that has all the numbers on it. And I like numbers because I work with numbers all day. Numbers are things that I focus on. So in referring to the general plan on density, it talks about land use, and it says developments on sites greater than 160 gross acres, which we have. So when we do calculations for these density schedules, are we doing it off the gross acres or the net acres? So the net acres with the roads all taken out, and we're left with the net acres. How do we do that calculation?
Well, first of all, we had talked about this a little bit last time with regard to the Lafferty property, where, like, for example, the multifamily, it allows up to 18 dwelling units per acre, and if it's a component, not necessarily a PAD, it can allow up to 20. So the two multifamily parcels here, by example, are both 18 acres. In fact, actually, those are the same as they were part of the original approved document in 2005. You're kind of working with a shopping list from 2005 that's kind of the same now, but just kind of moved around. It's like moving the vegetables and the different produce within the bag to kind of make it a more commensurate meal for today's day and time. Now, with regard to the density and things, the PAD, once again, back to the top, can technically deviate from the typical zoning.
Right.
However, more often than not, they'll either imitate what is in the zoning code, calling out R1, R2, R3, but usually a PAD, its goal is to go higher than that. And that's what Nick and both Gilbert identified a little bit in part. And once again, back to the top with the development agreement, it's a contract that's already in place with the developer and with the city. It's good, it's in good standing, it's still running. This is sort of like rearranging the shopping list a little bit, where it actually calls out specific units within range of like the width of the lots and stuff. So it's like 25, 50%. So with some of the numbers that you're seeing here, or the widths that are in the first two phases, we just happen to know that because they're working with us on their preliminary plat. But in the end, they're still going to have to stay within the budget of that specific call out of the original PAD and the development agreement. So it's basically the opportunity, but it's also the constraint and the responsibility that's already set in place that you guys don't have to, I wouldn't say worry about, But this is what it is. It's an amendment to the PAD. So many of the things that might have started from scratch are already in the bag, so to say, and the protections and the responsibilities and the courses of action that we have as the city with regard to the developer, or even vice versa, are already put in place in a sense. So once more, the zoning, sometimes they'll imitate what's exactly in our zoning code, but they'll usually go above it when they have a PAD, and that's what's going on in this case too.
Well, I kind of stopped short on my question there, but I appreciate your answer there. Being it's my second meeting today, this time. But, so what I was getting at, it said, developments greater than 160 gross acres shall provide a minimum of 10% of the total gross acreage at densities of one or less dwellings per acre or as approved through the PAD. So, it's 1,340 acres, one paper has 1,491 acres, 10% of that is 134 of 1,340. Are there 134 lots with one house on them that are an acre in size as it states here in the general plan?
No.
The PAD is, once again, an opportunity for them to literally have their own development code within the allowances of our development code.
Right, I'm reading this from the general plan. I didn't make it up. But it says that they should have this lot size should be 10% of the gross amount of acres. So my question is, do they have lots that are acre, with one dwelling on it?
No.
Yeah, I know they don't. I already looked through them.
Since this was originally approved in 2005, and they're working within the lot distribution that's called out within the development within the original PAD and the development agreement, they're fully allowed and capable of doing this the way that it's proposed right
But within the
now.
2025 general plan, they're not.
I know, but the
way that I
prior
understand
entitlement
it.
goes back to 2005.
Bill, if I might, Commissioner Scott, it says or as approved through the PAD. So previously, the Brighton Village PAD approved a deviation to that 10% requirement. And so now what they're seeking is an amendment to the previously approved PAD. And then Phil and Gilbert can go through in detail, but as he presented, the amendment specifically is not changing, correct me if I'm wrong, densities, or setbacks. They're changing how many units again. So we're going from 6,064 to, is that right?
Yeah, they're totally, the original is 6,065.
So the general plan contemplates the ability to change that 10% requirement, which is what they did through the previous PA, what they're seeking to do with this amendment.
It doesn't read like that, though. I mean, you guys have amendments on amendments that we don't have access to, but yet we're here to make a decision tonight on this proposal, but it feels like it's not in compliance with the general plan as I read it and as I looked it up and studied it.
Yeah, and Commissioner, I'm just reading to it as, I referenced the 10%, but it says, or as approved through the PAD process. We're going through this process to change that.
Right. But the PAD is held accountable through the 2025 general plan. Is that correct?
No. The
That
2010 general plan.
Okay.
That 10% requirement is going to be a requirement unless it is approved as a deviation through a PAD process, which is what we're doing right now. So they can deviate from that 10% requirement if they obtain PAD approval at P&Z and City Council. They previously did that at the Brighton Village PAD, and they're seeking an amendment to that now.
Okay. Did we have that in the packet?
Do you have the,
Have that information in the packet? 'Cause
No.
The development agreement? Yeah, of course not.
no, the previous PAD.
Previous PD, we do, previous, it's the comparison of the information, because what's in this also is a development agreement that's approved. We could provide that. It's a pretty big document. It just talks about what's allowed, and we check that for you, so you don't have to delve into this like planning department does. So we have to be sure that it meets that requirement. That's why we're bringing it to you with these
Yeah,
certain
I'm not
conditions.
doubting
So-
what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I just like to read things
Sure.
make sure that that's what it is.
I mean, we can provide a development agreement to you if you'd like. It's
Well,
pretty specific.
one of the things about it, though, is that sometimes they are massively extensive and 40 to 60 pages and read legalese like trying to read the Iliad in Latin. The thing that you have in us as professional staff members with all the experience that we have, and we go through this with all the department heads, and this discussion through the general plan approval this summer, and to this next step, have gone through multiple meetings involving all departments and those heads of departments like Ben and all the experience that he has. So this is where we arrive. But just real quick, like on page 6, where it calls out single-family residential development standards, it calls out 48s, 53s, and 60s, and it talks about an allocation, which is another way to say the maximum amount of lots that can be developed in those categories are 50, 30, and 20% to those relative widths. That's in the original PAD, also called out within the development agreement, and they're still adhering to this shopping list from the way that it was originally prepared, the way that it is now, and they're basically retooling it, just moving some things around, and that's completely within the framework of still having this be in front of you as having standing.
Okay,
And a lot of, just to also add, we do run things through our attorneys, so when we look at changing something or doing something, we consult with Nick and maybe Dennis and make sure what we're doing, it meets the legal standards. So we just don't, internally, just staff only.
Right.
It's
No, I
as a
understand.
team. And then we consult our attorneys to make sure it's correct, so.
okay. I have another density question on the information that you gave us from the staff report. According to the general plan, it's 4.5 dwellings per acre, and with them adding more lots, so to speak, 928 increase, they're actually at 4.7.
No.
Yeah,
I think that it was at 4.7.
no, it wasn't 4.5, and then they made it 4.7.
Yeah, I saw that. But they took the school out and added those lots in, which changed the number of lots that was available. And is the number 4.5 or 4.7 density now?
It's 4.7 on their records, but the code was 4.5 in the general plan.
4.7 is the number for the not apart, the 152 acres. Once again, that was part of the original approved planned area development.
Okay.
That was in 2005, and that even existed 7 years before even our present general plan came into existence. So its entitlement, its rights exist prior to these call-outs in our development code right here, or excuse me, in the general plan.
Yeah, so they were technically that number was grandfathered in.
Yes, if you want to call it that, yes.
Okay.
It's on the section, it's not a part of.
Yeah, just on that section alone. Yeah, the 4.7, just on that alone. The overall rest of the project is 4.5.
The one we're looking at tonight.
Both allowed in 2005 and within the framework of allowability within the development agreement and what they can propose.
So what you're telling me is back in 2005, it was 4.7, and it was approved at 4.7?
A PAD in general, for whatever the general plan was then, can be compliant with it, but a PAD is its opportunity to propose its own type of standards, so long as they're compliant.
Within the boundary of the general plan.
And we're only approving the things covered under the 4.5 units per acre. The
You're only doing the
4.7 is just
4
showing information, it probably shouldn't even be there, because it's not a part of this development.
So
And
are you approving
right-
the 4.7 or the 4.5? I'm getting,
So it's the 4.5, right?
Yes, that's what's proposed today.
it was the
Which is
4.7.
the target in the original development agreement and the original PAD.
So we,
And happens to be compliant with our existing general plan by coincidence.
if it's confusing, we probably could leave it off next time, so we don't show. We were just giving you information on what we, overall PAD with part of it, but that piece that shows 4.7 is not part of what you're looking at right now. So, but it says not a part of on that piece, so it's, right?
Okay. Well, that's why I asked, are we doing calculations off gross? Are we doing calculations off net? I would assume
Generally
it'd be off
speaking, at the
net.
master plan level, but we get to a different kind of net number when we get into the site planning and to the preliminary platting. That's because it's lines within the box. In other words, it's a box within the box. You got the right of ways and things are being designed, and you know those finite numbers to be able to say it's 17,296 feet to this category minus this number to get that net number, but we focus on the net numbers in those processes. So this is all within the same framework of what had been previously approved, and the numbers still add up, so.
Yeah, that's what I did, is I took the easements on the side of the road, and I multiplied them out, divided them by 43,650, and determined, how many acres are there. And then, but if I don't have the right starting number, I'm using a gross number and I should be using a net number, then it gets to where
Here's
the
the easiest
numbers
way to
don't-
look at it. Most of the time, we don't get a preliminary plat level type study or what's called a lotting study or product with the entire PAD. It may be just a portion of it to show a representation of it, or it may be not there at all. So from the get-go, we're only dealing with gross numbers until we get down into the more finite review and engineering to actually know what the net number is. So that's where that's performed and completed.
Yeah, one more.
You have to look at the entire project to see what the number is at the end too.
Sure.
Because if it's 4.7 is the final number, both Unit 1 and Unit 2, or Unit 1, the one we're discussing tonight, it has a density of 4.5 on 1 and 4.2
Two.
on the schools area. So you've got a lower than 4.5 average between the two of them right now.
Start with,
But
yeah.
later on, it's going to grow.
Yeah, because you got one that's 8.0
Yeah,
and the one that's 18, but
Those are the middle density townhouse condo products.
right.
And
Right.
once again, we need diversity in our community too, and it is less than 18% of this total project. And the first whole phase is nothing but single-family residential, and we're talking like 1,800 units. So, I mean, we're gonna get a whole lot of single-family detached units as the first phasing goes, along with the employment corridor before some of the multifamily. Now, it could come on sooner when the infrastructure's there, or they come to talk to us about proposals, but right now, they're talking about building single-family detached homes, and that's what we want most.
Yeah, the first phase, there's 1,096. So that's how many lots that we're talking about right now.
so are our calculations on density on open space, are they accurate too? On the net or on the gross? I just want to all I'm doing is asking questions because I'm using the general plan of 2025. That's all I have access to as my guide and doing the calculations of the math. That's kind of where I'm going here.
Yeah, again, we didn't provide the development agreement because that has a lot of that supersedes the 25 plan because it was already approved. So they're entitled to certain rights under
Right.
that agreement. They're different from the plan,
Yeah,
so.
it'd be nice to see what those were, just.
Yeah, and we
No,
haven't
for
had
reading
anybody
purposes.
just dive to that level because we look at all that at our level we've been talking for a year. And so, we didn't want to provide we don't want to review it all over again at that level, this meeting. Hopefully you trust our judgment between all their engineers and ours that we look, or we can meet before the meeting. If you have those kind of questions, we'll we'll pull that out. If you want to look at it in that detail, we can.
Right.
But it's, everything matches, I think, that Phil looked at, we looked at it. And
I only got one more question, so,
no problem.
we're almost out of the woods here.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. All right. So I was reading on in what the staff gave us here. And again, I found some numbers I like to look at. And one was the residential, the width of the road. So, from the back of the gutter curb to the back of the gutter curb. Here, this one's on page 8, kind of at the bottom. It says residential collector street is 70 foot wide. Okay, that's at the beginning. That's good. With a 33-foot roadway, back of curb to back of curb. And when I looked at the general plan of 2025, that's only one. The general plan says that it should be 36 feet. Says the city at a minimum shall require streets at least 36 feet back of curb to back of curb.
Which actually it does on the local.
Yeah.
Because it's a residential collector with no parking. Mr. Commissioner, the reference of the right-of-way in the back of curb is actually called out relative to a residential collector, and there's no parking on the residential collector, whereas with the local street, where it is the 36-foot back of curb to the local street within a 50-foot right-of-way, that's 36 feet to account for parking on both sides, if that be the case. The narrow width of the travel area or the actual improvement area between back curb on the residential collector has no parking on it. So it's fully capable of handling the volume of traffic that would have to go back and forth with it. Ben looks at this stuff with us. These are also standards that were part of the original approval. Car models have changed, but the way the length and width of a lot of cars from 20 years ago, 15 years ago is kind of similar, putting aside the SUVs. But one way or another, this can handle it from the civil engineering of the traffic report that would come with the next stage of the platting to exemplify or show that that is the level of service and the type of infrastructure improvement that could handle the volume of traffic relative to the density of its usage around it, so.
So what you're saying, in the short answer, is if the street is 33 feet wide in a residential area, you're not going to allow any parking on the street.
Well, it's a residential collector, so no. In fact, most of the time, it'll be the type of street that is actually the backyards of people and like the common party walls from some of the things that we showed here with some landscaping and some nice meandering sidewalks on either side and nothing but traffic going back and forth, maybe people walking up and down the sidewalks, no parking whatsoever, nor driveways coming onto that collector.
I'm still learning the terminology.
Commissioner Scott, if you'd like, it's a difference of 3 feet, so we could ask the applicant, and you can make part of the we have an attached list of stipulations, and in that, you could state that roadway, instead of 33 feet, needs to be 36. So what it would do is take away 10 feet, or not 10 feet, but some feet off that 10-foot wide multi-use path width, and put it into the roadway. And that way they'd all be 36, because that's what
Yeah,
we're.
I'm just trying to compare the general plan that I have, 2025, obviously isn't what it was approved on, but we're finding that out now.
And a lot of.
As just my guide.
Yeah.
Gilbert, maybe I can answer the question that we just went through the subdivision on the other side of 9th Street down here. And we asked them to change the depth and how far the house was from the front and all that stuff.
Right.
Because they had narrower streets than what the code asked for. So the change, this isn't the final plat map.
Right. They still have to provide.
And we haven't voted on that map yet. So when that comes, these things that have to be changed will probably be corrected or we'll ask them to change it or whatever.
Mr. Chair, we still want to have that change in the stipulation so that it directs, us to be able to
Right.
do that. So
Right.
part of if you want to add that stipulation that 33-foot width
Yes.
street needs to be 36, then it'll apply to this when it comes back as a plat. So,
Yes.
so if you want to make that and keep it 36, which is a wider street, that's fine, because we have had complaints on the narrow streets that are too narrow and some of the
Yeah, they're
Part
really
of Ranch, some of the
dangerous.
others, yeah, so there's not enough room, and so, doing 36, and you still have that right-of-way width, so it'll still work. You're not taking away any of the lot or anything, you're just increasing and changing some of the sidewalk widths and some of the walking, and just increasing 3 feet, so that'll work. We can work with that, I think, and we can ask the applicant if they were willing to
Yeah.
do that.
We had to change on that, other one, we had to change the distance that the fence was. We moved the fence up so that we could get room to do something back there in the back. So there's a lot of things that we can change when it gets to the final plat map.
I got one more question. I forgot. This one doesn't have to do with density, so you're off this is just a reading one. There's a table, I think it's table 3 on page 6. And in the notes in the fine print, it says no manufactured homes are. So I would assume that means there won't be any manufactured homes there.
Right.
So if you go over a little bit further in the document here, to page 10, and it says staff recommended above that. On the last line, it says, so it talks about the PAD major amendment application of its own fulfills these provisions as an alternate approach utilizing the land, in this case for a large manufactured home development. Are we talking?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Commissioner, my apologies on that. That actually should be stricken from the report. I used the template for Hawk Hollow, which is
Okay.
the large manufactured home development. This does not have any manufactured homes, and that should have been stricken out. My apologies.
Good catch, thank you. Yeah, they're not manufactured homes, and those have HUD stickers on them, we can have modular construction that is on a foundation, and it meets all the building code requirements, which is different. A manufactured home, this is a good product, great product, it just has a different label on it. and
Okay,
it's-
I was just,
And it's
maybe-
ground in.
I thought maybe it was a test trick question or something.
Yeah, see if you're reading it. No, that's great, thank you, that's a great
You're
catch.
catching
Thank you.
Phil. You're putting,
No, that's okay. There's one
Phil
other
on
thing
morning.
on one of the later reports too, and over the holidays, I was trying to get a lot done and I wasn't feeling so well, so my apologies.
I've typed wrong too.
Yeah, we're human, sometimes we make a mistake, we apologize. We'll try to catch those things.
I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
you're welcome. Thank you. You put everybody on their toes.
I just want to understand. That's all I want.
We're gonna have to have you sit over here on the end.
Why, Stinson?
That's where the toe standing come from.
Oh, all right.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, would you like to also hear from the applicant or let them
Oh,
add
we
any
got some
additional
more
commentary?
questions.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm
Committee.
sorry. I just had one quick question. I was wondering, Phil, if we're talk about the not a part of, in the difference on the first, slide, where we have their original plan, yes, here. I noticed that the initial pad approval, it was a landfill and now it's not a part And then there's a couple areas down at the bottom that are not a part. Talk about the middle, that's not a part. You were gonna address that. I'm just wondering, is this private property that people refuse to sell, or that's gonna be stuck in the middle of the development?
Whenever a planned area development is initially assembled, it is most ideal if it's like square or rectangle, just from a utility standpoint, or contiguous, but that's not necessarily an absolute requirement. So in this particular case, what you're seeing is initially some folks that back in 2005 didn't want to be a part of it for whatever reasons that it was. And then sometimes when the new proposals come up like this, they want to stay with what they have. Now, in this particular case, what is still a portion of this overall project, even though this will part of this amendment, is that it will still have the same trunk sewer and water availability near it. And particular attention was paid to with regard to the transportation or circulation access so that this property parcel could still be served in the right way as if it was still a part of the overall project, although for this next phase. But once again, the portion that I did address was that this not a part is actually still going to be subject to the original PAD and still subject to the same development agreement as even this proposal tonight. So,
Okay, but in that explanation, you're talking about that middle part, correct? Not the one at the bottom or the one.
It's that little brown, the brown one
Little
down at the
brown
bottom.
right,
They're not subject to HOA rules, so they could have as many derelict vehicles on the property or whatnot, or.
No, they'll still have we have our city codes that apply, so we have a restriction on.
Okay, well, I'm
building-
just wondering,
yeah.
because is there, it looks really, really nice, and it's gonna have all these walkways and the parks, and then right in the middle of it is gonna be somebody who's
No
not
man's
subject
land.
to the same rules as everybody else in the area.
Well, and the not a part of will come in as a separate development someday, and it'll be called, Brighton Village instead of just Brighton. So we're calling everything we're doing right now Brighton. So the other older part's still Brighton Village, which is the original PAD. So that'll be subject to that.
Okay,
And so they would have to come in the same way and
I just
with the
wanted to make
plan
sure I
and show everybody what the
understood
street
that.
widths would come up and all that
Okay.
on that piece. It just wasn't included in this because it's not under the same.
Okay, all right.
yeah, these things can occur like that. Like there's, in part of the valley, there's a master plan called the Islands. There was another portion of it that was supposed to be a part of it that didn't happen in the 80s. So they still tried piggybacking on them by calling themselves North Shore. So these things happen like this sometimes.
No,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that and understood. Thank you.
You guys got anything down there? Do not. Okay. This is a public hearing. I will open the meeting to a public hearing, 300 feet or anybody. Okay. Anybody that wants to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address. No.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Hi, my name's Joseph Vance. I'm with Hilgart Wilson. And this is Rob Goopser with Hilgart Wilson. We represent the property owner. As Phil explained earlier, we recently received general plan amendment approval before you a few months ago. This is the next step in the process, and we're just here to answer any additional that you may have.
Anybody have any more questions for the developers? You guys got off scot-free. Anything you want to say about it? If there is, go ahead and say it.
Good evening, Commissioners. Rob Goopser again from Hilgard Wilson. Just want to touch on a couple comments real quick. I know, Commissioner, you had a question about some of the outlying parcels. They are not included. They're not part of the original PAD. The not a part is an area that will continue to remain and will still have the Brighton Village PAD zoning as part of it. Unfortunately, we were not able to work with them to include them as part of the overall project. So we've done everything that we can to address the issues with circulation, making sure that we still maintain access to those parcels. And again, they will still retain that zoning that they have today. And we feel like we've worked the land use plan appropriately, so there are adequate transitions between the existing zoning that they have, plus the new zoning that we're proposing as part of this PAD. The one other piece that I'm just going to point it out real quick, it's this area here, right here, that's not a part, that's a landfill. So it wasn't part of the original PAD, so we're working around that as best we can. We've tried to buffer our uses from that landfill with some drainage channels, trying to just create some separation between land and that existing use.
If I may add, Mr. Chair, that landfill was closed. Finally, we've been trying to close it. Back when I was on city council in '98, we were trying to close it. So it finally got closed under Rick Miller and Ben Navarro, Public Works. So it's a city-owned property. But it's all nice and capped with rock, and it looks pretty nice. So that's the way it's going to sit right now until we decide to do something else with it. So we'll work around that.
Thank you. And one more follow-up, I think it was Commissioner Scott, you had some questions about the density. And as Phil mentioned in his presentation, we do have a preliminary plat for that initial Phase 1, Phase 2 ending that we anticipate coming forward with you, before you in the near future. I don't know, Phil, if you can pop it up on the screen real quick. Well, that'll work for now, but I think there was the lot layout. Do we have the lot layout? I think it's in ours, so, yeah, okay.
We don't have them.
No worries. I just wanted to note that as we're requesting the density as part of this PAD, as we continue to go through the engineering process and addressing the city's comments, as well as including the open space requirements and looking how best to develop our community and create a cohesive development with active open space, the drainage that's required, trails, that actual density that we're proposing in the PAD is actually going to drop as we're going through the density or the actual engineering and development of this. So just for reference purposes, the PAD is calling out about 1,096 units for Phase 1 and 2. And as we've gone through this engineering process with the initial preliminary plat, we are at 927 units, which is a density of about 3.84 net. So just as a point of reference, when we do get further into that engineering aspect of it and the design aspect of it, that unit count does drop a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah, so when it comes back to us next time, we'll see a better number than what we see now.
You will see a more accurate number as we get through that engineering process.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read into the record, I had a phone call from Mike Lorfus with of Arizona Grain. And I was on the phone and he just had general questions about it and didn't say anything for it or against it. He just wanted to know about it. So I just wanted to read that into the record that he had contacted staff.
Okay. No other questions? The public section is closed. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Coolidge PZ 23-11-46.
And resolution,
No, this one doesn't have a resolution. So
Huh?
this one doesn't have a
Oh, this
resolution.
one doesn't
but-
have
Right,
one.
the
Okay.
conditional
Yeah,
use
because
does.
we went out of order, so the
yeah,
minutes
that's
don't work,
right.
yeah.
So this one, you may want to say, and the staff recommended stipulations, including the change on page 8 from a 33 to 36-foot wide street.
Just state that, and that puts it on the record because it's being recorded.
Oh, tell me again.
So just add, including staff recommendations, stipulations that are on the report, including number 15, another one that you talked about, that the 33-foot wide reference for the residential collector will now be 36 feet. It's located on page 8. That'll-
I can't remember that.
Here. He'll never make another motion.
Where residential collector on page 8 will be 36.
See, sometimes it's fun to be up here.
Yes, to say and staff stipulations, which is all these, and plus that.
Okay, and staff stipulation, plus number 15, the 33-foot reference for a residential connector will be 36 feet, and that's found on page 8.
All those in favor? Oh, I need a second.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Cool PZ 22-024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get some homes built out there. Okay. B. Cool PZ 23-1146. No, that's Brighton. I want to go to C. C. Cool PZ 22-0624. The major site plan application submitted by Reese Anderson of Hugh and Lake Attorneys on behalf of Heartland Properties LLC for a 1.45 acre plus or minus 16 unit, 8 building, single story apartment complex, Coolidge Commons, as located 1/4 of a mile south of the intersection of East Coolidge Avenue and South Jefferson Street, as situated on the south side or east side of South Jefferson Street in Coolidge, Arizona, with an APN number 205-13033A.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we've been working on this for quite a while. We want to thank the applicant for really looking at the layout and reconfiguring it, because originally it was something that we questioned, but it's come a really long way, and we feel it's a good product now. Phil will fill you in on it and let you look at that. It's in an R3 area, zoning-wise, so it's allowed to have the densities, and is it 1 story?
Yeah.
Staying 1 story, so they could have gone 2, but they're going 1, so a good thing.
All right, I'm going to pick on myself ahead of time here. Once again, doing a lot of work, wasn't feeling so well. On page 2, I accidentally call out 9 buildings where 9,900 total square feet. It's actually 8 buildings with 8,800 square feet, as every other part of the report does call out the 8 structures we'll see in the site plan here. Once again, this is a major site plan called Coolidge Commons. As you can see, the subject project is at the end of Jefferson Street here. You can see the readily available water and sewer lines that would provide service to the project. Here on our general plan, we can see that this entire area of Coolidge is within the urban neighborhood land use designation. Our zoning exhibit, as Gilbert identified, basically states that the entire area here, as you can see by the color coordination here, is an R3 district, once again at the end of Jefferson Street there. Few pictures to get an idea. This is the site generally right here, kind of the property boundary line moving along here, or looking generally southeast from Jefferson Street, moving a little bit further down Jefferson Street to the end of it. This is looking basically due east. Once again, the property line kind of goes up and down and around like this, and here's the right-of-way. And here's the site looking from the opposite side from Christensen Road from quite a bit of a distance. The ball fields are over here. Here's the subject buildings that are on site here. So that gives you an idea of what we're looking at here for present conditions. The site plan is a very organic site plan. As Gilbert alluded to, we worked extensively with the applicant and their contracted personnel to get to this type of product. I'm going to jump over here to the landscape plan. As you can see, it's very organic. The buildings are nicely distributed in and amongst the site here. There's a nice detail of open space common area between each of the buildings to kind of give them a unique distinction for even its type of product and the size of the units. So it's a very nice product, and we've worked very hard with them for a long time. Here's an example of the one-story product and maybe some potential colors. Some nice earth tones would look great here, complementary to the neighborhood at the end of the street there. It would be a nice addition to this part of Gilbert, or excuse me, sorry, this part of Coolidge. I was thinking of that other master plan community still. So I will bounce back to the landscape plan here. The applicant is here and available to answer any questions that the Planning and Zoning Commission may have at this particular time.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I got a question
Okay,
for Phil, I guess, or anybody. Is the outdoor living area the same as the open space? Can they be categorized under the same term?
The outdoor living area is a specifically called out amount of square footage relative to the zoning districts based upon the number of units. So it's that number, which I think it's 600, I think,
Yeah, 600.
times the number of units to equal that amount of required common space. And in this particular case, excuse me, if you can see it on the site plan, actually, there's an inventory where the applicant is, I think they're exceeding it by about 1,000 or 2,000 square feet. So they're actually going
The
up.
numbers are good,
Yeah.
good calculations this time.
Oh, so that's how you get the numbers, basically six.
I'm just curious,
Yeah.
on the outdoor living space, is that the patio in back of the unit, or what is that? I know what the open space is.
It can count such things as the patio and stuff like that, yes.
Okay. And then I noticed that there's only 2 handicap parking places. Is that in the code? I didn't look that up. It just seems like it ought to be a few more. 'Cause
Well, the applicant that we've been working with, the person that prepared this is an architect. And we would also continue to review this through the building department, who closely pays attention to aspects like that, not just the number of units, but also the dimensioning and the accessibility and things like that. And we have a very good third-party reviewer that does a really great job of making sure the thing gets done the way they're supposed to, especially if it's in line with federal regulations like that, so.
now this has to come back to us too, or is this the last time we'll see this?
This is a major site plan. This requires only its approval here. It is an allowed use within the district, so this will authorize it to submit directly into the building process.
Okay? So.
So we'll make sure there's adherence to the approved site plan once it comes in to us with all the building, the civils, the grading, drainage, everything.
Okay, so we'll have to make sure that when we make a motion, that the amount of handicap parking spaces needs to be checked.
Yes, that's reviewed during the building process and
Yep.
building plan. So we look at that. I think we already did look at that. I think it probably meets the requirements. Because it's not every unit's required to have one. It's so many units by the building code. And we just adopted the 2018 IBC, the council did. So it's not taking full effect till the 1st of July, but they can select to go to the 2018 because that's what everybody's doing, because that allows you more flexibility. We were under this 2006 forever, but everybody was asking us to use the 2018, and we were allowing it through an email and a request because it's easier, it's better because it recognizes all the latest building, trends, everything else.
Okay,
And so sometimes it's a little more restrictive, but overall, like, for example, they were, on the utility scale solar, there was nothing in the 2006 that even addressed it. The 2018 does, and so things like that. It's a better code. Hope that helps.
okay. Any questions?
I have two.
Okay.
Sorry, I have two questions.
Don't be sorry.
One was, so, I may be reading this or understanding it incorrectly. The buildings are a total, each building which houses two, single-story units are 1,100 square feet. So that's, each unit is 550 square feet each? Or are they 600 square feet?
Well, it's kind of like, I guess, the real estate thing. It's just like there's an exterior dimension to the unit, but there's an
That's why I was
account.
wondering if they're counting the patio as,
And the carport.
Well, the building structure area is basically a shore to know what the ratio is to the overall site or the building coverage. In this case, it's vastly under what would be allowed on this particular site. So it's more of a point of information just to double check that it's, that its coverage is a good
I
design.
was just trying to understand how large they were.
Mm-hmm.
How,
Yeah,
big they were,
There's two units.
big each unit was.
Yeah.
And then the only other, question or suggestion or whatever, that I had kind of had to do with the parking spaces as well. And we had brought it up last month at the other apartment complex is, I see a myriad of Teslas all the time, and I'm wondering if, if these, when they're planning these types of multi-unit dwellings, are keeping up, I guess, with the times? Are they planning on, looking at having some, facilities available for customers that are driving electric vehicles?
Mr. Chair, we could have the applicant address that when you want him to speak.
Chairman Metcalf and members of the commission, I'll speak loud just in case the microphone's not working.
Working great.
Thank you, sir. My name is Reese Anderson, and I'm with the law firm of Pugh and Lake, and for your record, our address is 1744 South El Vista, number 2. And with me tonight is Sarah Prince, and even though we both have red hair, we're not related, but some people might think we are from the same firm, but it's an honor to have her here. And also with me is Andrew Hesse, our architect, who has done a wonderful job on this site plan, and as you heard Phil say earlier, that's been well received by the staff. Together, we represent Heartland Properties and Mr. Dan Feld, who couldn't join us this evening. But to your question, ma'am, the answer is, I don't know that answer specifically, but I'm happy to bring it back to him. I know that Mr. Feld is happy to comply with every code that's there, and we've done that through the way. What you're describing, though, is the reality of the world we live in, and it would be just smart business to do so. So I'm not authorized to make that promise, but I could tell you that I know he would take that good, and I'll make that same recommendation to him. That's the best answer I can give you, the honest answer I can give you this evening.
Okay.
Because, it should be, because that's the reality we live in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I don't have anything else to add unless you have a specific question, Mr. Chairman, but we're here, all of us available to answer. I'll sit down now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since this is a open meeting portion, I'll open the meeting to the public. Anybody that would like to talk on this, please come to the microphone, give your name and address.
My name is Michelle Barton, and I live directly across the street. I own 2 lots right there, and those
Okay.
are acre lots.
Can you give me the address?
I own 780 South Jefferson and 788 South Jefferson,
Okay,
which are the 2 lots directly across from them. On the side of it, we have a open canal, a very large canal. We get irrigation. So I have an open irrigation ditch in the front. Am I liable for those people that live in those apartments with my open irrigation? Is it my concern that I have to cover that because we're going to do something different? And I'm also allowed to have livestock. With these apartments coming in, are they gonna be okay with my cattle and my horses there? Because I do have those.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the zoning that you have on your property protects that use. So you're allowed to do that. Same way, the R3 also allows what they're doing with the apartments. So you're an existing use, you're grandfathered in, everything is fine. You know, so you're okay.
And then, are they going to do anything with the street? Because if we get, 16 units, we're looking at maybe 16 more cars driving that street back and forth. We have no sidewalks, and it's a gravelled road. I mean, they put some pavement on it last year and threw some gravel on it, but that's all we have. So with 16 more cars driving down it, and those are acre lots you can see from, on up, the acre lots. But then you're gonna break all this up, which is fine, if that's what they wanna do, but you're looking at all that traffic. So we're gonna have to do something with that road, and who's gonna pay for that? Is it the city? Is it,
We'll require half-street improvements on Jefferson, but the rest of it'll be the city responsibility to maintain that and get it, up to speed. And keep it with chip seal. Yeah. Right, that's what the part that they'll have to improve is half the street on their property. Not the whole street, I guess I wasn't clear. And then the city will be responsible for the rest of the street for Jefferson. And we've got a pretty comprehensive replacement and repair schedule we're doing now. If you've seen all the improvements around the city, so we're going to continue that.
well, I understand that, because we're dealing with the same thing on the other side. I think we've been here times, because we have different people coming in to buy the back part and put apartments in, but it keeps getting sold. So I don't, it's just kind of, my concern is the cars, and all that stuff. So that's my concern about the whole thing. It's just that we have animals, we can have animals, and is it 18 or 6, whatever they have, 16 units of, and I don't know, are they gonna be low income? Are they gonna be okay with all of that adjacent there? And I have almost 2.5 acres there, so that's my concern.
Your existing uses are protected, they're grandfathered in, so,
Okay.
yeah, they can't be taken away from you.
and the canal is grandfathered in too, and
Yeah, and they would have a fence, I think, facing that canal, so we don't have a light. They'll be worried about liability also, so they're required to have fencing
yeah.
in that area.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Rachel Harvey. I live at 714, the big one. My concern is the added traffic at a nice, quiet neighborhood. It's one of the reasons I stay there. Nobody's bothers me. I don't have to worry about anybody. I got good neighbors. Now we have people that are going to be coming and going. That makes me nervous. I'm not saying there's all gonna be nasty people. I'm just saying it only takes one. Also, is there any way we could have that attached to Christensen instead of our street? And I mean, are you gonna have to cover the canal? Is there any questions or answers for those?
There's a fence required on the southern side that'll keep people from going over into the canal children, that kind of thing. So it's required to have a fence there. They'll be part of the project.
Okay. So there's not gonna be any way that traffic could be channeled to Christensen instead of down Jefferson?
No, not the, but the property owner can answer the fence. But there's no public right of way there to shift traffic over to a different street.
That's too bad.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm going to close the public section. Ask for a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll make a motion to approve Cool PZ 22-06-24
With
recommendations to check parking spaces
the
number,
handicap parking space.
handicap.
Okay.
Can we add a caveat in there? Maybe this lady's concerned about noise. Can we control the miles per hour on that road?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're already controlled by the, so if there's any speeding or anything and we have enforcement, we could call PD and they'll set up a kind of an
We couldn't
enforcement.
just set it at 10 miles an hour or something like that?
The council does that, yeah, you
I mean,
can.
people aren't in a hurry to get to a dead-end road there.
Yes.
Sure.
This is a residential street. I know it's been just chip sealed. It's not like a pavement. We have a lot of chip seal around town. They've been milling it and putting oil and chips down to make them better. They're not perfect, but they are better than they were. This is a residential street. Those streets, the speed limits are set by typical traffic requirements. Police, it'll probably be 25 miles an hour, as in any other residential street. You really can't go lower than that. It would be unreasonable to expect people to drive 10 miles an hour up and down that road. Most of the people living there now would probably violate that. 25 would be the set speed limit for this roadway. And it is a dedicated public road. This property is zoned multifamily. The applicant, I would commend the staff and the applicant in this case. They've been through like 8 variations of this site plan. And I think this would be a very clean project for that area. I think it'll really enhance when they get it landscaped and put all the other. And with respect to the parking and the handicap, we have a parking requirement in our zoning code that they will have to comply with. As we review their building plans when they come in, we will count to make sure they have adequate handicap parking. It's just one of the review processes through that permitting when they come in for the building permits.
Sorry.
Did I get a second?
Mr. Chair, I have not heard a second yet.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Cool PZ 220624. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
Mr. Chair, if you could have a roll call, please.
Okay. Gilbert?
Commissioner Stinson. No. Commissioner Montoya.
Aye.
Commissioner Mayers.
Aye.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Bacon.
Aye.
Chairman Metcalf.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, it passes.
Motion carries
5-1.
5-1. Okay. Cool PZ 231149, a conditional use permit application requested by Brian Greathouse of Birch and, oh boy, I'm gonna murder that one. Thank you. I'll leave it like that. On behalf of Nature's Wonder Incorporated. That's a business name. Per the land ownership of ACP Real Estate LLC for Section 702D 20 recreational marijuana use, subject to the definitions of Article 3, Section 302, and the provisions of Article 10, Section 1008 in the General Industrial I-2 zoning district on an approximate 4.48 plus or minus acre lot as being located at 1302 West Industrial Drive, Coolidge, Arizona, APN number 209-25-0070. Director Lopez.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this application is, if you recall, if you know the area, right across from Bright International. There is a building there. It's been a dispute for quite a long time. It's been there quite a while. So what they're doing is taking this facility and opening it up to sell recreational marijuana, which it was before, I think it was medical and recreational. So it's recreational only, but the code allows that at this point. We're changing the code in the future. So it's going to maybe not allow it in the future, but right now this is allowed. And so we're recommending approval on this request. And we'll answer any questions you may have.
Bill?
Keep this pretty basic because the conditional use permit, Nature's Wonder, recreational marijuana use, it is about the use. This is like a site plan process, but I'll keep it pretty basic here, and the applicant representatives are here to answer any questions. So here we have our site exhibit. You can see its location relative to this portion of the city of Coolidge. Here is the land use map. The subject site is right here. I probably should have used a different color than red with magenta, I guess. But you can see the expansiveness of the industrial and manufacturing area that it sits within, the ideal land use for this type of situation. And the zoning exhibit here calls out I-2, general industrial, the entire park here. That's its intention. And that is our highest zoning district. So, couple of inventories. Site here, generally northeast from the right-of-way of West Industrial Road, going up and down this way. You can see the buildings here. A little bit closer up to the buildings where you can see the wall relative to the fence and the access coming up here. So that's the site looking northeast from the right-of-way of Industrial Road. Coming out onto North Kenworthy Road, you can see the buildings here again, looking generally to the northwest again. And this is coming a little further up Kenworthy. You can see the three buildings again. Here's the property line, basically going up and down around here from that view from North Kenworthy Road. The site plan basically is an inventory of existing conditions. The site is largely intact, almost sort of a turnkey site, if you will. In this particular case, we have the buildings called out here, parking, impervious surfaces, in other words, dustless surfaces, asphalt, concrete, wherever in between, portions showing the ingress and egress relative to the site, and then the nature of the remainder of the site. Pretty much, once again, a somewhat turnkey site outside of maybe some tenant improvements inside of the building. So that is basically the summary from staff. Once again, the applicant representatives are questions, and I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Questions? Board?
I have some questions.
Okay.
Want to go first?
So, in looking at this, are you currently a dispensary or open to the public?
In other locations? Not here.
Not here. This is not open to the public?
No,
Not right now.
not yet.
Okay. And that's what you're requesting, is that
Right.
it be open to the public? Okay. So the first question I have is, there's 8 parking spaces here. What do you get, once you open up to the public, what are the intentions of traffic? Because I've seen the one in Santan, and you can't move over there off the road when it gets busy.
There's more than 8, right?
What she's talking about in front of the different buildings here, there's more than 8, yeah.
Because I'm looking,
ahead.
there's kind of this one drive, but yeah, there just doesn't seem like, but yeah, there's a plan to deal with the traffic.
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Chair, members of the council. For your record, my name is Madison, 1850 North Central, and we're here with Nature's Wonder. There is about 8 spaces in front of each building. If my memory serves me correctly, there are 25 provided where 15 are required, so we actually have a little bit of extra parking. I think you're just looking at the one building on the bottom, and you're right, I think that's 8 if I'm counting correctly quickly, but there's more parking throughout, as you can see. This is the same I want to go back a little bit on your previous question. This site received approval for a conditional use permit for recreational marijuana in 2012. So it was operating under a different name and with a different owner for a while there. Gilbert pointed that out, operating many years. It's been closed down for a little bit, not exactly sure how long. Our client would now like to utilize the site in the same way it's been utilized. The parking, the circulation was already working out. We're going to continue that. As Phil said, it's kind of a turnkey site.
Okay, all right. I assumed it was just this first building here.
They've
that
got
we're-
access
Yeah,
there and over here.
okay,
It's
so
the whole
these are
site,
not
yeah.
other businesses
No,
down?
no. This
Okay.
is all theirs.
Okay.
And
that's-
we've been to this, I've never seen the traffic just,
Okay.
be overflowing. I mean, they could park on the roadway if they needed to, that's public right away, but I've never seen that happen. I mean, we were there during COVID, the city bought some sanitizing, they were selling sanitizing fluids, or I guess you call it, to clean, and it was being sold along with the dispensary, so that's where we'd go get it, and then we'd buy it, use
Okay.
it throughout, for the city.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that that there was enough egress and whatnot to move in and out of that area.
Okay.
Just a couple of general questions. I don't know much about marijuana, don't use it myself. What's the difference, like who's the customer? Before it was a medical marijuana, so I would assume it would be, people would get prescriptions to go there, so it was really controlled on who attended there. And now you want to make it recreational. I think of recreational, there's an illegal recreational dispensary north of my house. And I'm pretty familiar with all the guys riding bicycles and slow moving that. So my concern is if those customers are similar to the ones in my neighborhood and these buildings are in the proximity of residential housing across the road, maybe, 100 feet away, 200 feet away. Are there going to be, I guess I'm trying to figure out who the customers are that come there, and what regulations will you adhere to as far as minors, people are already, hooked on drugs, just trying to understand this.
Thank you, through the chair. When this originally received approval, in Arizona, only recreational marijuana was legal, right? Now we're in a only medical marijuana was legal. Now we're in a situation in Arizona and under your code where recreational and medical marijuana are both legal. There is a host of requirements my client has to follow to keep his license and to meet the standards of the Department of Health Services and keep his license. Nature's Wonder is experienced. They have other dispensaries. They're familiar with all these requirements. Similar to alcohol, you have to be 21 years old to purchase recreational marijuana, and those standards have to be followed, or else you're risking your license that they work very hard to get. They have security measures. They have security cameras that are required. They have panic buttons if there's any sort of issue, and our client is very familiar with all of the safety and regulatory requirements.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, being in the proximity of residential homes, that maybe people underage go there, and the cashier, the clerk, just goes ahead and sells to them.
They can't do that.
No, I know they can't do it, but they do it. I mean, how's it gonna be regulated? Is that gonna be something the city's gonna regulate?
Mr.
And how does that
Yeah,
look?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, if I might, Commissioner Scott, they are regulated by the state. And so if there's any type of underage sales in a similar way that they're underage sales of alcohol, their license could be revoked, and if their license would be revoked, they wouldn't be able to operate within the city. So if there's any reports of that happening, it would be reported to, Department of Health, was it 80?
Yeah.
Health
correct.
Services, and then they could investigate and possibly revoke their license.
Okay. So the patrons that would go there to shop, do they have like a card, or they just kind of walk off the street? And as long as they meet the age requirements and things of the such, then they're legal to be there?
That's correct.
I think Nick's answer was great. This is a really, really regulated industry, probably even more so than alcohol due to they ID at the door. So yes, that requirement has to be made, and these licenses are expensive and difficult to get, and they don't want to risk losing them.
And if I may add, what I've seen in those facilities is that the health cannabis is at a higher level. It's more of a medical grade. It's like buying, you go to the store and buy aspirin, but then you go to get a real high level of painkiller. So the levels in the medical are a lot higher than in the recreational. And they're limited, I think, on the amount they can have at any given time through state law. So I know that. And people can also, I think, grow at their houses according to
They can what? I
I
didn't,
think they can grow in their homes too. They're allowed to. So this is taxed and, it's controlled. The facility was already used for many, many years as a dispensary. So we didn't have, as far as I know, complaints on that issue. So, and they could sell back then medical and recreational, but I don't remember any issue, if I recall. I don't know if they had recreational long, but we never got complaints from that area. So hopefully that helped answer.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
So, just wanted to understand, looking at these three buildings here, which one is actually going to be the storefront? I'm assuming the other two, or maybe potentially like the third half of it, will be like the grow houses and stuff like that.
No.
Which one, have you guys identified which one that's going to be, the storefront?
Through the chair, Commissioner Montoya, the southernmost building is the storefront. That I understand that that's how it was previously operating. We are not asking to cultivate on this site. The other two buildings haven't exactly nailed down the use, storage. They're already there.
Okay. Yeah, my thought process with it is if it was a grow house or something like that, those parking spaces would potentially be occupied by the workers themselves. And then if we're gonna have customers parking across the street, and let's say there's a potential influx, I could see something going along the lines of somebody maybe getting hit by oncoming traffic or something like that. If it was necessary to post signage or something right there designating a crosswalk, something like that.
Understood. I don't think those top two buildings will be generating any sort of traffic, so there should be ample parking, safe circulation.
Yeah, and there's not going to be any cannabis grown at this site, even though there is grow houses available out back in the other area of the industrial park. There's some grow houses back there, but I don't think they're being used now, are they?
Agronomy Innovations, no, they are, but they don't sell out of there. They ship to the valley, and they sell the products. If you want their products, you have to go to one of the dispensaries up in the area for like painkillers for your wrist.
Yeah,
So stuff works good.
but this dispensary is just going to sell it.
Right, and that's, I have no issues with that whatsoever. I'm just more or less concerned about just the
Right.
potential of the public. Hey, you can park across the street, but there's no designated like crosswalk or saying, hey, slow down, coming into it, signage. I don't know if that's necessarily in our prerogative, but I think it should be addressed.
We know that it was used before as a dispensary, and there were, if they had if Overflow Park, I don't know if they had a sale of something, I guess, maybe, but they could park, next to the sidewalk, just like you do on any street. I don't know if they necessarily have to go across the road. I guess they could, but they'd have to hopefully get a crosswalk. Maybe we could look at one at the end by, is that Ninth? Not Ninth, that's, Industrial Drive, yeah. As it touches Kenworthy there, if we need to, we can bring that up to our Public Works Department.
I'm just thinking of overall safety.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, our Public Works Department comes right down that road, so they'll see it.
Yeah.
The big
It's
red
right down
building
the
there.
street
is there.
from the Public Works Department.
Yep.
I mean, that was my
Yeah,
question there.
okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one more. I'm not familiar with marijuana. So I got on the internet and I asked the question, do marijuana dispensaries increase neighborhood crime? So there was an article on there from 2019, and it was out of Denver, and it was done by some college professors at the University of Denver. And it says, we found that neighborhoods with one or more medical or recreational dispensaries saw an increased crime rate that was between 26 and 1,452% higher than in neighborhoods without commercial marijuana activities. How do you answer that?
Through the chair, Commissioner, I always have a hard time predicting the future. This is one situation here where we're lucky because the dispensary has previously been operating. And as I think both Gilbert and Phil have pointed out already, we didn't see any problems with that. So we're fortunate that we can actually look back and know that there have not been problems with this site being operated as a dispensary. So I hope that gives you a little bit of comfort.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Open it to the public. This is a 300? Open to everybody. I'll open it to the public. Anybody have anything to say or question? Come to the microphone, state your name and address. I'll close the public hearing, and I'll request a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'll make a motion to approve Cool PZ 23-11-49 and Resolution 2401.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Can I have a roll call? Or did you get who? Okay. 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 Motion carries. Reports from the chairman and the director and Mr. Rick.
Mr. Chair, we probably want to go back and do the environmental. Remember, we skipped out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll cover that. We'll have
That's
Phil
right.
present that real quick.
We gotta go back and talk
Yeah,
about
sorry.
environmental.
I know. Yeah. Phil promises he'll be quick. But we'll cover all the important things in the environment. And it's really what you have, and those of you that were here already have a copy of the general plan. Those new ones, I passed out a general plan, and if you go to the environmental section of it, a lot of that's not going to change. There hasn't been a lot of changes in the environmental portion of it, so I would anticipate we're going to keep a lot of that the same. So Phil can go into his, are you ready, Phil? Environmental.
I must be Bob Euchre. I must be in the front row.
You are in the front row.
Hang on a second here. All right, worst comes to worst, I'm going to go with the saying, save the best for last, right? All right, this is our January 10th, 2024 last subject matter of the environment or environmental of our 6-month process. So I'll kind of do the usual thing that I've done a couple times before, which is inventory the overall process and then kind of break down this particular section. Arizona statute requires that a general plan be updated every years. This is a city's policy document. Categories include, as shown here on our flyer that we've gone through the last 6 months, land use, circulation, open space and trails, growth areas and cost, water resources, and last but not least, working on the environmental section. The City Council approved the city participation plan in July of 2023, the 6-month process. This will come before the Planning and Zoning Commission in March of 2024 for its consideration to recommend approval to the City Council, which will then advance in June of 2024. Thereafter, it will be added to the November 2024 election for the voters to consider their approval. Notices and monthly updates with commentary sheets were sent out, 70 letters each month to state, county, regional, government, private, and nonprofits, 200 plus emails to persons in the private sector, emails to department heads to share with all employees throughout the city of Coolidge, along with posters, flyers, and that were distributed on bulletins in public areas around Coolidge. So basically, our nice little graph here, here's the cover of our existing general plan. This is representing the progression of moving through our 6-month process and, of course, arriving at our new general plan. So, the environment. The 2025 plan created the aspects for the management and preservation of natural resources while balancing growth and development with these resources. This includes such things as water quality, wildlife habitat, soils, geological hazards. This environmental element contains analysis policies and strategies to address water quality and natural resources with regard to new development. The water resources, we're going to talk a little bit here about ground and surface water resources. The water resources element was also presented in the 5th meeting on December 6th with regard to water management actions. While still noting here that the Arizona Department of Water Resources deems all areas of Coolidge to be within the Pinal County Active Management Area, and once again, as noted on December 6th, there are several potable water companies in Coolidge, primarily being, of course, Arizona Water Company, and some areas in the south managed by Global Water Resources. In conjunction with the city, various water conservation programs and practices are followed to orient users and customers to such things as drought-tolerant plants, water monitoring, and water loss controls. Wastewater is the other component to what is referred to as wet utilities, and the City of Coolidge's wastewater treatment plant can treat up to, at this time, 1 million gallons per day, but has the near-term capacity of 2 to then eventually 4 million gallons per day. Air quality is kind of shown here. All the equipment is turning up dust here. Is a major environmental component and is primarily overseen by the Pinal County Air Quality Control District. Dust that arises into the air is a hazard to humans that may contain pesticides, pollens, fungi, and other irritants. Greater quantities of dust can also contribute to accidents, plus added wear and tear to vehicular and building mechanical systems and appliances, primarily that being of air conditioning. Other airborne particles can also include the burning or incineration of fuels, garbage, and a host of other materials via other chemical or application processes, as I've been experiencing. I don't know about some of you folks up on the highway as they've been burning some of the farmland up there and some of the leftover vegetation. It's a wonderful smell at 5:15 going home. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about soils here. Soils as their own environmental component is often overlooked, but when factors such as stormwater runoff flows are considered, whether designed as such or by incidental overflows, has a great effect. Actually I wanted to show you the pictures here, just kind of showing you the erosion and stuff like that. Has a great effect upon infrastructure and roadways. Such activities from new development, farming, mining, construction can accelerate erosion and the redepositing of large amounts of sediment. Various site conditions, soils, activities need to properly identify as to the efforts that will prevent and/or address such conditions and precautions to prepare for these activities when seasonal or unexpected weather conditions arise. Now we're going to talk a little bit about geological hazards. Geological hazards can include such things as earth fissures, flood-prone areas, similar to the identified and inventoried conditions of those locations of the soils category. Geological hazards can be thoroughly checked from available resources such as the Arizona Geological Survey and other Arizona surveys. The final component of the environmental aspect is biological habitat, which includes many unique locations, as can be seen here throughout the county, of vegetative pockets where flora and fauna thrive. The two primary areas within the Coolidge planning area include the Gila River Regional Area and the Central Arizona Project Corridor. Many plants and animals unique to Arizona, but especially Central Arizona, such as cacti, ironwood, mesquite trees, along with javelina, coyotes, and reptile species, are identified for specific land conservation efforts. So that basically is all the elements within the environmental section. This is January 10th. This completes our 6-month citizen participation plan. So we will be moving forward to actually complete the entire general plan update and have that before you for our March meeting. So I turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, for any questions or input or questions from the public.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we will add, like what the Arizona Water Company is doing with the program for water conservation. That's been really successful. We bring around 4th grade kids and at Artisan Village and teach about water conservation, and different elements of Every Drop Counts, I believe it's called. Rick's participated in that, and he's taught there, and I have too. And so it's an ongoing educational component that U of A puts on with the Arizona Water Company here. So they travel around and do that. So I just want to add that to it. Okay. And we follow all the environmental regulations required for any projects as they come through. So just so you're aware of that.
And environmentally, we are top places in the state because we got more solar cells out here and batteries than anybody else, basically, for the size.
How about a question when you get to the?
Yeah,
Okay.
I suggested that, yeah.
Just
Open up to the
you
public.
can open it to the public and see if anybody wants to comment on the
Okay,
environmental.
I've got a,
Absolutely. Just
hey,
friendly reminder.
go ahead.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I have a question on the geological and other hazards. The first 2 years of my life, when I was going to college, I was a geology major. And then later, you know, the price of copper failed. You know, I figured I better get a degree in something I could get a job in. So I have a little interest in this, but my question is, how concerned are we with these earth fissures that appear to run kind of like where Nicola is, maybe Procter and Gamble, up in that area? Now, I've been out in the desert to the east of there, and there's large ones there where you could drive into it and lose your vehicle. So, what's the caution that we need to use when we see all those little red lines on there?
Commissioner Scott, we use those red lines as a guide. You know, it's in our GIS system, so when someone comes in to develop a property, we let them know that it's showing that Geological Survey has shown a fissure there, so they need to conduct investigations because it has to be addressed, especially if you're going to put a building there. And, you know, that there's not going to be any subsidence and the building cracks in half. So Nicola's site, for example, was reviewed during the civil process, and they did a lot of investigations. They drilled into the soil and found that there were no fissures there. If they do find some and there's a way to address it, then we would look at that. They'd have to be engineered solutions that would be, you know, insurance companies won't cover a building over a fissure, so they have to find a way to do it right, correctly, and meet all the building code requirements. So it's used as a guide to tell us where these might be, because we even have to check areas where it might not show one, because it could have been more since, that wood doesn't show up. So they're required to do some drilling and check the topography and make sure the soil can support. We require soils report for buildings, so that's part of the process. So if it's in a parking lot, you still don't want it there, but you really don't want it in the building. I don't know if Rick wants to. He's
Rick wants to say something.
a geological guy too, so. Agate, so.
My degree is in geological engineering, so I tried to find a real job too. Actually, it's a very good question. These geologic hazards are something that individuals should be looking into and focusing on when they're doing their due diligence and acquiring property. There are lots of resources out there that would provide them some details, maps like this. I can tell you that I was out with a geologist looking at the Procter & Gamble site. They took a backhoe and they went in areas where they thought potentially there would be some fissures. They go in, they dig a big trench, and they look at the side of that trench, and if they see any earth fissuring, it kind of raises some questions. They didn't find anything in their areas, but that's oftentimes what's done in these site investigations for these larger areas like that, the bigger developments. You look at Robeson Ranch, fissures all over Robeson Ranch. There's fissures all over Arizona, primarily in the lower the lower slopes of these mountain ranges. That's where you'll see it most prevalent. Down here by Arizona City, the area is just loaded with fissures, and some of them are significantly large. There have been fissures that have opened up that have actually where horses have actually fallen in and horses have been killed. Some might be pencil thin. And would never be, more than that. So it's just it's like a karsting environment. You get into an area where you have a lot of your, Florida, other areas, South Dakota, we have a lot of gypsum and calcium deposits. Your whole front yard could fall in, you never know. So these hazards do exist in certain areas. We just try to let people know about them best we can.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Just taking a look at the wildlife connectivity assessment, just understanding, I see two dates up in the top right corner, one that says 2013 and then the other one 5. Was there a recent wildlife study or anything like that completed? Has there been any notices or changes in, say, potentially invasive species or anything coming over from the Florence area or anything like that?
We will be updating this. What that is that number up there is actually the original date that the current 2025 plan was adopted in 2013. The 2025 actually appears on all the regular documents in this slide presentation. Just to call out that it's the 2025 reference, but then once again, the 2013, it's its original adoption date, so.
And it'll go to the voters this year, 24. So it's required to go back during the fall election. Okay.
Has there been any studies? Has the state done any studies of?
I'm not aware of any at this point that are different from what exists already. Anytime you do a project, you look and survey the land to make sure you don't have certain species. And I used to clear the environmentals for the city of Glendale for federal projects. So we always look for different, we even look for bats. We had one of our coordinators send me an email saying bats in your belfry, that we had to watch out for bats because there was something that came out from on endangered species on bats. So we made sure that we were tearing down some houses and demolitions, things like that. We didn't find any, so we would stop and relocate. So there are different solutions if you do find those type of animals. Sometimes the university comes out, relocates spotted owls, and they put tubes in the ground and carefully move them, and so things like that. So we.
Yeah, and that was just my general question.
Yeah, absolutely.
There wasn't like a site survey or anything done.
Right.
To figure out if there was anything coming over from surrounding areas.
Yeah, because a lot of the land we have in our area is culture, so it's disturbed. But so you may have some on the fringes, but in the deserts where you probably find more of the natural habitat, I would think, coming in. But you're right, they can migrate in, but normally they run away from the tractors, so they.
Mr. Chair, I might be able to clear up the 2013 as well. That is from the Pinal County Wildlife Connectivity Assessment that the Arizona Department Game and Fish did. I was able to pull up, it doesn't look like there's been an update.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, I guess if that's the last time they update it, to see if there's a plan in place to update that. I mean,
Like I said, they're done on an individual basis. Nicola goes out, or Procter and Gamble, they'll survey the site, make sure there's nothing there that they have to worry about. It's endangered, and that goes through a process. I think Jakob Anderson, St. Holdings has done pretty extensive surveys of the property, that they have reports that they've done to give to potential buyers, along with water, fishes, all the soils, all that. So it's part of put them in drop boxes for some of these companies to look at, so they can see if there's any issues, concerns.
I think Commissioner Montoya is asking a really good question, though. We could potentially, Phil, you could reach out to the department that was responsible for doing the study in 2013, see if they've got any planned updates, and if they do, you might just put that in the document. There's expectation that they would update that plan from time to time. But it's not one that we update, it's just information.
yeah, I mean, that just answers the question is, if there's better information out there, then definitely would like to get that to you guys.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Commissioner, I do want to say too, because I was curious about any, impediments or barriers into migration or different things like that, especially with the influx of building and different things that we have going on here. But I think that was addressed, that with any of the plans that are done for the building, there is that component that has to be done of environmental. And then with the money that is coming in for the expansion of the 287 and the 87 on the freeway, the Department of Transportation will be conducting extensive environmental assessments of the area as well, which will include Coolidge.
I think it's important to note that projects, subdivisions and those kind of projects, the private developments, aren't subject to those environmental reviews like the federal projects would be. Fortunately for our area, we don't have a lot of these migratory concerns. I mean, if we were in a area where you have desert tortoise or other corridors that you didn't want to keep open, in the higher Sonoran Desert areas, we probably, like Phil mentioned earlier, up around our mountain ranges, probably a little more sensitive there. But in our primary, where we're seeing most of the development, biggest thing we're going to see probably around here is the burrowing owl concerns, and certainly there, we kind of let the developers know if we know that they're there. They like to try to find somebody to relocate them. But fortunately, we don't have too many major concerns from the wildlife corridor standpoint in our area.
Anything else? Phil? You got any other things you want to bring up? No? Okay. Anything?
I'm good.
Phil, you got anything else you want us to discuss under environmental?
Nope.
Okay.
Could I make a statement just on water? It was that's what we talked about last time.
Right.
I wasn't on my A game then. So, I serve on a water board called the Local Groundwater Committee. We're like a subdivision of the GUAC. So, we meet and discuss things, and basically what we discussed, started 2012, was this extinguishment of groundwater, that the state was removing the groundwater right from the land of a farmer or another person, and they were extinguishing that and collecting those credits to be sold later to developers. It was a bill that was brought forward by developers, so if they purchase land and they don't have a sufficient amount of water, they could buy these credits. Anyway, we got that reversed. But one thing I learned in there, and you guys just recently approved Hawk Hollow, which didn't have a permit, but there was a loophole involved where they didn't have to have a permit because the people were renting, kind of like apartments, I guess, they were renting that property. But just one statistic to keep in your mind when we start considering that is 2016 was a number of years ago, I realize. But in our committee, and Arizona Department of Water Resources would have, that we had. In 2016, the aquifer in the Pinal AMA, which is roughly Pinal County, recharged at 90,000 acre feet, okay? It's quite a bit. But we pumped 400,000 acre feet. So the aquifer is not always recharging to the amount that we're taking out. There's a lot of steps involved where, you know, cities do recharge and things like that to protect, you know, the depth of the aquifer. But I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys.
Thank you. Good information. I wonder if she ever got a hold of a hydrologist and asked him about Galero Mountain up there. I'll bet she did. Okay. Gilbert, tell us about.
Mr. Chair, I think we have a general call to the public before we do.
Oh, yeah, okay. There's no public left. We got one city councilman and a newspaper person and So, Rick, you got anything you want to say before I let him finish it up?
I'll try to be brief. I just want to again say thank you. It's going to be great to work with each of you. These discussions tonight, as I'm listening to these complex land use questions, especially ADs, as I was sitting out here trying to listen to the jargon, I can't imagine how the public feels. They're complex. These planned area developments are a zoning classification. I was going to zoning classification. It's rare that you see any single-family residential subdivision built with straight zoning or the traditional zoning anymore. That's just not happening. I worked in Casa Grande for many years. I've worked here in Eloy, and most residential plans that come in now are done as planned area developments to allow for smaller lots, some deviations from your typical subdivision standards, because the lot costs are much more expensive when you talk about putting in the utilities and infrastructure. If you went with a standard subdivision, it'd be a 70-foot wide lot by 100 feet deep. You wouldn't have any home builders building that today here. No one would be building. So, you know, it provides that flexibility, gives the open space. So I want to open this up and let you know that we're here to provide some training, and if you want somebody to come in here and talk more about planning principles, and we can get people from the state and others to help you with some of these questions if you have them. You know, there's no such thing as a bad question. They're all good. You're going to be learning a lot of things here, a lot of jargon. When you start hearing jargon that you don't understand, just ask, what does that acronym stand for? And I'm not sure that we'll be able to answer that question. Sometimes we just use the acronym so much we don't even know ourselves. But I just want you to know, great to have a commission here. We got one more seat vacancy. As you know, Sean Leonard announced last month that he wouldn't be coming anymore. It is his last meeting. So we'll have his position to fill. The planning and zoning, the city council will be filling that seat, and hopefully we'll have a full commission that can provide, you know, really good guidance and oversight in this very important public process. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I have to say, Phil and I are the only two holdovers, and I have learned a lot. And I hope I brought some things to the commission, because everybody has a different education in their life experiences. So you don't think that you're not going to bring something to the committee, because everybody will bring something to the committee. It might be one question, and that one question could be the the key that we need to know to either make a decision or not make that decision. So don't be afraid to speak up. Right, Phil? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
And I think it's important that each of you know and probably understand open meeting laws and things like that. And I don't know if you were talking with Gilbert, but we'll have to do some training on making sure that you are a public body. You shouldn't be out there having side conversations as a, so Nick, you can probably provide them some training on that if you don't know those rules and those implications mean to you personally. You can be held personally responsible for violating open meeting laws, so we got to be real careful about that. If you, eventually we'll probably want to give them some up to date on that.
Yeah, I can touch briefly on that. I've talked to Gilbert and Phil and looking at possibly doing a training maybe at the next meeting, just kind of an overview of the roles, responsibilities of P&Z, and then that could be a great time. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them, and we can answer them as best we can.
Yeah, just to add to that, Vice Mayor Henry was asking me about the training. We had contacted the League of Cities and Towns. I mean, we can do it, but sometimes it's nice to bring in somebody else so you can us. And even though we'll provide it if we can't find somebody else. So I may bring in some people I used to work with in Glendale or the League of Cities and Towns. We'll certainly get our attorneys for the open meeting law, but then just some of the other P&Z will continue to help you understand and kind of the nuances and things. So you don't have to dive into all the. We do that for you, so we give you a recommendation, but we'll provide whatever you ask for that you want to review. So we'll do that, so for you.
And if you have a question and you want an answer, just go down to the office.
Yeah, please call us.
Or call them.
We'll explain everything, or you can
Yeah.
set up a meeting and we'll go over it, as long as it takes.
I mean, that doesn't violate the open meeting law.
No. Yeah.
That's right. So just call, get an answer. I do.
Yep. Provide good suggestions too, so thank you.
Okay, now go.
All right, yeah, well, I'll be brief, because it's late.
Hey, no, we don't want you to be brief. We want the whole enchilada tonight.
No, we've been, with the holidays, things kind of were quiet, but we still have things going on. We've got a lot of houses, rooftop solar that's going on, and then we have permits that are picking back up a little bit. Some of the interest rates have dropped, and then some other things happened with the water meters that have been released. So KB Homes is getting more permits, and some of the others are also, but big ones like Procter & Gamble, we're working with them and waiting for the site plan so we can move on with that. We're working with Pinal County and different engineers on the road construction for that area, so that benefits that. We were successful in acquiring a grant for Erica Road and Highway 87 for design. And if you've been down there, you've seen the improvements on Hannah and down south from Nicola, and those are great. They're wonderful. You got turn signals on that. We plan for the same thing on Erica Road, because that'll be the main entrance for Procter & Gamble. And right now they can use Hannah, so they can still get to their property. So once they get going, we've been working on that. Still getting a lot of requests for calling project information forms down south through the ACA, Arizona Commerce Authority, so that's going well. We respond to all, and then some will hit, some will not. Hopefully we'll get some big ones soon, at least good ones. That's what we want. We're careful about water, and how much water they consume. As long as they recycle, that's a good thing. If they recycle 80-90% of the water, then that's a very good thing. Also downtown, we have, if you'll notice, where the old Cohen building was, down across from the post office, you'll see some demolition occurring on the pad site where the old Cohen department store was. So Intermountain and the Pinal Hispanic Council are building a medical facility. So they're started. They pulled their demo permits and everything, and so we're going to see a brand new building go up there. It's really exciting. We haven't had anything downtown like that in a while, so that'll be very good for downtown. Let's see. We have some other. We're working with another fast food company, and then we're working. You approved Rio Liberto's site plan, so They just had some changes on, as we talked, modular buildings. They're going to go to a modular building that looked just like what was provided to you for review. So I told them it has to be the same. And the only difference is they'll make the concrete pad and they'll bring the components and put them up, but the facades and everything should be the same. And so I said, it's got to be very, very close. So that's because they were having a problem finding materials and construction crews. So hopefully that's loosening up a little bit and we're able to get more of these things done as they move forward. So if you notice down south, Shope's has a new canopy over their fuel. It looks really cool at night. I haven't seen it at night. And,
I was in Shope's yesterday, and they've got the cash registers all set up for the truck fueling. They've got all the equipment that they need to do major truck fueling systems in there.
It's awesome. They haven't opened it, right? Yet, not yet.
Pardon?
They haven't opened it yet. I drove through
No,
there
they
trying to
haven't.
see if I
They've
could
got
fuel up, but
And they got the window open going out to the
Yes.
to the
So-
outside now, so that you can, whoever's in there can look outside.
yeah. So I think it's getting real close. Well, we'll be able to approve everything to the building department and get it going. Generally, we're pretty busy. We're meeting with Arizona Water, Global Water, all the different people. Am I forgetting anything?
The only other thing Gilbert might mention, the Sundog proposal was going before the county planning commission. So we drafted a letter to the county planning commission expressing our opposition.
Yes, Rick states there's a project Sundog that's on the border between Casa Grande and Eloy on 287, and it's in our planning area, and our planning area doesn't support solar in that area. So I drafted a letter and sent it to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and next Thursday, I believe we'll attend there and speak that we're not supporting that, and then see what happens. And then after that, it goes to the Board of Supervisors. The last one we did, Cielo Solar, we were successful in, and that didn't go forward. So that was south of us on 287 and 87, but it was surrounded by the city, and there were some areas there that are prominent commercial areas for the future. So we were clear on that, and so the board listened to us. So we're hoping to do the same again. Anyway, that's all I have at this point, Mr. Chair.
How about Burger King?
Burger King's still coming. Now, the mayor doesn't believe me, but they tell me
I believe you.
they're coming. And we're actually looking at another one, but that's on the old site. So I don't want to say anything and get everybody all excited till I see the burgers start flipping. Then I'll be like,
Sign on it looked like it was an old gas station on the southwest corner of, what is that, Coolidge Avenue. It looks like
In the
a
Boulevard?
donut ice cream.
oh yeah, there's an ice cream, the Monarca it's called.
place.
They've got permits and everything. So
Is
they're
that like the chicken place that's still 3 years?
yeah, no, the chicken place, what's slowing it down is just getting hood approvals and everything from the state fire marshal's office, because we have to wait, and they only have like one person that goes out and does this, so we're gonna try to contact him, because Rick's dying to have some chicken.
And the contractor that they had was just really slow.
Yeah, so it's not all the state's fault. We always tell everybody to apply for those permits early, right off the bat, and some of them wait, and then at the end, they're like going, oh, well, we need to get this. We're like, you have to wait. It's got to be approved. And so the Wonatica, I think that's moving forward. I don't see anything that's holding that up, but they're just finishing up things. And hopefully they'll open up and we'll be able to buy some ice cream by summer.
I have noticed, I have, oh, this is on the record, sorry. I'll mention it later.
All right. I think that's all I have at this point. Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick that at the February 7th meeting, right now as it stands, we just have a conditional use permit request for a manufactured home. And outside of the suggestion about training or something of that nature, we'll add that as an agenda item. But we'll also have the election of officers, so a formal appointment of a chair and a vice chair.
And our chair has done a great job as vice chair, so he's got all the experience to run it. So anyway, we just friendly mention.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Call to the public. Anybody want to come say anything? Nope. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all so